Ladies and gentlemen, hello to each and every one of you. This is the international news headline for this Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. President Emmanuel Macron breaks his silence, brandishing the nuclear threat against Russia. Despite the very poignant speech given by the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, despite the warnings, despite the global geopolitical news that is shifting here and there, Emmanuel Macron insisted on delivering a speech to the French people, a speech to the nation. In this speech, where he touched on several aspects, the most important element to remember is the continuation of the war. It is the threat of nuclear power, and it is Russia that is present at the borders of France and Europe. That must be rendered harmless at all costs. To this end, French President Emmanuel Macron has planned several mechanisms to address what he considers to be a real threat. For France and for all of Europe, it is Russia. He has a program, a project that will start as early as next week to effectively combat Russia. Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome here on the Tribune of Awakening. Consciousness. In this video conference, we will discuss this speech, the address to the nation that he delivered. We will cover the main points and analyze this news in great depth. So, before continuing the video conference, if you are new here, my name is Robert Théa. I am a lecturer and researcher in the law faculty at the largest university in the Republic of Guinea, which we have, of course, established. I am the president of a nascent political party in the Republic of Guinea called the Citizens Party for the Service of the Republic. So, welcome everyone. Thank you for sharing the video conference. Thank you for sharing it as much as possible. Don't forget to leave your various opinions in the comments. Let's dive deep. Emmanuel Macron brandishes the nuclear threat. The French president could press the nuclear button if necessary. That's what he implied. So why Emmanuel Macron claims that the Russian threat is present and affects us without knowing borders? In other words, the Russian threat affects France. It affects Europe. He doesn't even know what the limit is in terms of borders where the Russian threat is spreading. So, it should be noted that while the United States of America strives to present Russia as a country without issues, France, leading Europe, seeks to incite all of Europe to rise against Russia. That's why in Vladimir Putin's speech, he said that the Ukrainian situation is minor in this matter. The new path that the Europeans, NATO colleagues and Europe want to take risks, being very costly for the Europeans and NATO, we continue. It is in a serious time that Emmanuel Macron stated that the Russian threat is present and affects us without knowing borders. Emmanuel Macron believes that in the face of this dangerous world, remaining a spectator would be madness. For him, one must not remain a spectator. We must be actors. Since Russia is there, the threat is there, we must act. So, he says this, the Russian threat is there and it affects all European countries. It affects us. He continues by saying this, that Russia has already turned the conflict in Ukraine. Russia has already made the Ukrainian conflict a global conflict. Russia violates our borders. To send opponents to eternal rest, they manipulate elections in Romania and Moldova. So for him, everything that happened in Romania, in Moldova, is the doing of Russia. On the evening of March 5th, Emmanuel Macron opened his heart. Then he says that Russia organizes cyber attacks against us. Our hospitals, therefore the French hospitals, the European hospitals, and Russia is trying to manipulate our opinions with lies spread on social networks. So, for him, this aggressiveness of Russia seems to know no boundaries, and in the face of this dangerous world, remaining a spectator is madness. So for him, Russia is at the root of everything happening in Europe, so we will need to act quickly. What does Emmanuel Macron propose? Firstly, in the coming week, there will be an emergency meeting of the chiefs of general staff, the armies, and the states of the European Union that are interested. That is why Macron is convening this meeting. We really need to ensure that Russia is rendered incapable of causing harm. So he says this. Macron says this. He says, France will gather next week in Paris the chiefs of staff of the countries ready to guarantee a future peace in Ukraine. So initially, they are framing this under the name of Ukraine, since they said, after the signing of the agreement, that a peace mission would need to be sent to Ukraine. He says, France will gather next week in Paris the chiefs of staff of the countries ready to guarantee a future peace in Ukraine. So she says that peace in Ukraine might also involve the deployment of European forces. Yes, they would not go to fight today. They would not go to fight on the front line, but they would be there. On the contrary, once peace is signed, to ensure its full respect, starting next week, we will gather the chiefs of staff in Paris from armies that wish to take responsibility. So, this force, they are going to set it up. According to Emmanuel Macron, the force will not go to the front line to fight. The force will be there to wait. The peace agreement is going to be signed. As soon as the peace agreement is signed, it's over. Putin is trapped. That's what it means. They will then go to monitor the implementation of the peace agreement. However, you are not unaware, dear ladies and gentlemen, Russia has openly stated that it does not want a force to come and guarantee any peace agreement. Even the United States of America, Donald Trump had said he is not into that. He said if Europe wants to guarantee Ukraine's security by sending soldiers, there is no envoy, but America will not lead it. So, here is what Emmanuel Macron says, and thus on the sharing of nuclear deterrence, French with the Europeans. Because Emmanuel Macron, France as a nuclear country after the United Kingdom, these are the two nuclear countries in Europe. France wants to share its nuclear deterrence capability with other European countries. So, he proposes a debate on an expanded nuclear deterrence to European allies. Emmanuel Macron says this. Responding to the historic call of the future German Chancellor, I have decided to open the strategic debate on the protection of our deterrence for our allies on the European continent. Whatever happens, the decision has always been and will remain in the hands of the President of the Republic, the head of the armed forces. So, he wants to open a debate, discussions on the issue of nuclear deterrence. So what does he want concretely? This is where it comes in. The threat of pressing the nuclear button that he wants to share with others, since he would like that when he presses the hash key. In case, when things go wrong, the whole of Europe can serve as a cover for France. So, this is how Emmanuel Macron announces to his people that he has new challenges, new investment challenges in defense. And he calls for commitment from each and everyone, whether they are French or Europeans. And so Emmanuel Macron declared a desire for new investments in the defense sector without increasing taxes. So, he says, we will have to make new budgetary choices and additional investments that have now become essential. These will be new investments that require mobilizing private funding, but also public funding, without increasing taxes. For this, reforms and choices will be necessary. Courage. So, he wants to increase taxes in another way. He wants to involve the private sector. He wants to cut certain public budgets, as he did towards the end of December 2024, which led to the dismissal of his prime minister. He wants to go back to the same approach. He wants to fight against Russia, but he lacks the means for this fight. And he is counting on Europe, which also lacks those means. So, Emmanuel Macron says, the homeland needs you and your commitment. France will follow only one course, that of the will for peace and freedom. We must therefore act united as Europeans and determined to protect ourselves. That is why the homeland needs you, your commitment. Political decisions, military equipment, budgets are one thing, but they will never replace the spirit of a nation. Our generation will no longer reap the dividends of peace. It is up to us to ensure that our children reap the dividends of our commitments tomorrow. Here is the end of the declaration of the speech by Emmanuel Macron. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can clearly see that Emmanuel Macron is in a mindset of true provocation. He is in the process of rallying all of Europe, all of NATO against Russia. While Russia has warned to say that they want peace, Russia does not threaten any country. But if anyone tries to provoke Russia, Russia will react. And Russia's reaction will be as swift as lightning. So, the situation is becoming more complicated. While America and others are trying to calm things down, France is standing for the continuation of the conflict. This is what needs to be said on this matter, ladies and gentlemen. It has once again been my pleasure to serve you here on the noble platform of awakening consciousness. Thank you for sharing this video conference in all your groups, across all your networks. Thank you for inviting your friends to come and subscribe. I will be back shortly, by the grace of God, the Almighty, with new updates. This was the voice of your one and only Samurai.